More you know, I'm Charlie Moore. This is Tyler Mundy, or as I like to call him, T Mundy, or as I like to call him, T Money, because he loves making some money. Tyler's been a good friend of mine here in Charlotte. Tyler, we're super excited to have you on my new YouTube channel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You add tons of value. Tyler, your background in real estate is such that you could really confuse people. So come bring it. The premise of the show is that anybody can do this, right? So you got to bring this down to our level. I'm sorry, because I know you can hang with
I don't think I confuse them as much as I could confuse myself.
You can hang with the heavy hitters, man. And so I appreciate you coming on a lowly show like this and sharing some knowledge with us. But yeah, welcome to the channel. This is a real estate channel. I titled it The More You Know, because I want to keep it pretty general. And if I want to do an episode on ping pong and want to teach you more about ping pong, I want to be able to do that.
You're going to know some more about it when you're done.
Exactly. Yeah, you will know more. And I am the more that you know, Charlie Moore. So honored to have you. Let's jump right into
honored
it.
To be here.
T Money, tell me about your background as it pertains to real estate.
Yeah, man. So graduated from college in 2014 back in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and started working immediately after that as a real estate appraiser. And granted, at this time, I could barely spell real estate, but learned a lot. So ended up getting my general certified real estate license. So it took about 5 years to do. Was doing commercial and residential.
Wait, it took 5 years?
It took a while. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I could have done it quicker, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, you've gotten your GC. Like I'll give the punchline: GC, Realtor, and appraisal license.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like.
Yeah. So kind of
how
long
difficult
story,
they are, or as opposed to one another. You know, what process was the hardest? What test was the hardest?
GC license is the most recent. I got that one about last year. But before that, real estate license, and then prior to that, the appraisal license, and no longer active as an appraiser. Glad to be out of that field.
Sure.
Not super fun, but I did learn a lot. So yeah, man, the transition from appraising to being a real estate agent and then subsequently a GC started back in 2018, 2019.
Okay.
I was actually doing an appraisal and saw a house that was listed for sale about $100,000 lower than everything around it, which was fixed up. And I thought, man, I should flip this house.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I called my wife and I was like, well, she's never going to get on board with this. I knew nothing about flipping houses. I'd never flipped a house.
Wait, but pause. Real estate wasn't totally foreign to you, right?
Yeah.
Both your parents were in some real estate adjacent field, or right?
Yeah, that's true. So my mom's a commercial appraiser. And actually, when I was working as appraiser, I was working under her in her firm.
Nice.
And my dad's a commercial broker. So he's been selling farms and ranches for a long time. And yeah. So both my parents, and actually a fourth generation real estate agent.
Wow.
My great grandma was a real estate agent.
So it wasn't like a hard pill to swallow, or like you didn't have to be convinced that this is a good way to build wealth.
Yeah, and honestly, originally I wasn't in like a wealth building mindset. I was like, hey, I just need a job so I can pay the bills and stay alive.
You were in a W-2 mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. So what shifted for me was this house flip, and then ended up actually losing about $7,000 on that flip. Long story short.
Where was it?
But it was back in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I bought the house. I call there I am, right? I see the listing, and I call my wife, and I was like, well, okay, she's cool with it. Maybe we'll move forward. I'm not going to force it though. But she probably won't be cool with it, so it's going to die right here. Thankfully, she said, yeah, let's do it.
Wow.
And I asked my mom, I said, hey, what do you think about this? Going off her real estate experience and knowledge, and she said, yeah, I mean, go for it. You lose your shorts. Why not?
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, funded it private money. So
Nice.
Full purchase and rehab at about 10% interest.
Yep.
And then I did a lot of the work myself.
Yeah.
And I've learned since the research I've done, that's a huge mistake, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't as pretty as it could have been. I spent a ton of hours on it. I wasn't leveraging skilled contractors and skilled labor to come in. So right now, I did mention that I'm a general contractor, but I'm not the kind of, I'm a very hands-off contractor. I manage the projects. I bring in specialists, right? I bring in plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys, framers, people like flooring, painters. Yeah. So, and I'm letting everyone do what they do best, right? And I'm just putting the pieces in place. So I'm not in there laying floors.
You're primarily protecting your margin on new construction and on flips, right? So that you don't have to pay an upcharge to a GC.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think personally, I'm not a great contractor. Like if you wanted me to build you a house with just me with my own hands, it'd be an ugly house.
Yeah.
But so I'm bringing in people, right? Putting the right people in place.
Sure.
So I lost money, but what was huge is as I was getting into this property, and this is something I'd recommend for newer people looking to get into this. I mean, one of the best ways to learn is just to get in there and do it, right? If you
maybe lose $7,000.
maybe lose it, but yeah, when you think about it, thankfully every deal since then has made money, and so it was in a sense a small price to pay, but it was very stressful, and it was ugly for that end process.
And you told me before it was primarily because you were calculating the ARV or the after repair value based upon a very geographically close neighborhood.
Yeah,
but not not close in actual quality. Of home.
So that was something I had overlooked. About 1 or 2 blocks north of this property was this beautiful historic area.
Yeah,
and I was kind of right in the transition zone because where I was kind of in the middle, and then 1 or 2 blocks south was pretty ghetto. It's pretty ugly.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah. There's a reason Albuquerque is known for Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So, and I think too, if I had, hired contractors, got professionals in there to do all this work, it would have been a better looking product. I would have been able to sell it at a better price.
So I had a question here. It was called First Deal, Worst Deal. You just told us your first deal. Maybe you told us your worst deal too. What was your to date? What's been your worst deal?
Yeah. So that was the first deal, and financially,
it was the worst.
You could say it was the worst because the end product. Yeah. But overall, my worst deal was probably one in Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll spill the beans here for your listeners. It went.
Yeah, I just sold 2 homes in Salisbury. Yeah. So and they weren't bad. There were certainly headaches, right? It's, but I'll let you tell us that. Just kind of bird's eye view. What happened?
So for that one, this was my 4th flip at the time, here in North Carolina. And I had this contractor who, actually my neighbor, and I trusted him way too much. And long story short, I gave him too much money up front. He said he needed it, hand him this money, and then he stopped showing up. Ooh. And like tens of thousands of dollars, and left me with this gutted house. And just...
Was he licensed?
So he had told me he was licensed, but the facts didn't align.
Yeah.
Actually was not.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. No. So should have verified that for sure. And of course now I was due. Yeah. But thankfully, so there was a very stressful season. I was like, hey man, I've got no money.
Yeah. So you gave him a lot of money, and he just absolutely ghosts you.
Ghosts me. Yeah.
And he's your neighbor.
And he's my neighbor.
So it's not like you don't ever see him.
So to this day, he will not make eye contact with me.
I've been. I can vouch for that. I've seen him walk out of his house while Tyler and I are outside, and he does an abrupt about face and turns back into his house. He doesn't.
And I've tried to reconcile with him and be friendly, but he won't. It's not reciprocated.
Yeah. Wow.
So, that was about it.
You ended up now. If you had sold that, you would have lost money.
Yeah. So, and this goes back to it's kind of the earlier piece. One of the big things I learned in that first flip was just the value of investing in an education, self-educating, and for me, a huge resource has been the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Sure.
And I know it has for you as well, and a number of real estate investors. So I started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast in that first flip, totally changing my mindset. It's about how to scale and grow wealth through real estate. Well, actually, something I learned from the Bigger Pockets podcast saved me in this flip. And Brandon Turner, one of the former lead hosts, he said he had a flip where he wasn't able to sell it. And to avoid losing money, because I was at the point this contractor taking money, by God's grace was able to obtain finances to finish it. But if I'd have sold it, I would have lost about $25,000. I would have, which would have been a big hit, right? But learning this from Brandon Turner,
you're doing the hover thing. I want everyone to hear your beautiful voice. Yeah,
here I am,
right there. There you go.
But So with this method I learned from Brandon Turner, instead of selling it and taking a loss, I refinanced it and rented it. And just watching the market conditions, right, where this was in this last year, so 2021, market is appreciating very fast.
Yeah.
And even faster since then, thankfully. So essentially, so here's a broad overview. If I'd have sold it at 200, I would have lost about 25 grand. So putting a renter in there allowed it to capture more market appreciation. So now it's worth like 230, 240.
Yeah.
So that has captured all the loss, and I could now sell it at a profit. It hasn't even been a year.
And your renter's been paying down a loan for you.
Exactly.
Right? So you borrowed a low interest loan, relatively low interest in the history of human interest, right?
Yeah,
Loans. He pays down that loan. He or she pays down that loan for you while they live in there, and then simultaneously the market's appreciating. So you're building up equity through someone else paying down a loan, and then the market's appreciating, which actually segues really well into my next question, because that's an excellent example of a deal almost gone awry, but you were able to twist it and redeem it, right, and make it into a double up the middle, right? Maybe not a grand slam, but at least a double in the eighth inning, right? And so
I'm assuming that's a baseball analogy.
Yes, I'm sorry. I know you don't like
appreciate
baseball. It's April, and I'm itching for baseball. So that segues next into my next question really well, which is why real estate as opposed to another asset class?
Yeah.
Neither of us are financial planners or financial advisors. But I know we've done other things to aid our families in their journey to financial health. It's not like we have 100% of our money in real estate, but both of us have. I think it's fair to say
like 99%.
Yeah, like 98% of our money in real estate. And so, there's some truth in every joke. Why real estate as opposed to another asset class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for wealth building, and there's a sense in which what we're doing, right, through flips and spec building, we're not really investing as much as it's a job, right?
Yeah, we created a small business for ourselves.
Yeah. So it's not purely passive in the sense that our money's getting to work for us, but we're working to make money, and it's a blended combination. All right, the money's working for us, and we're working to amplify that, so which is why I think it's powerful. But real estate for me, it was a natural fit, just personally. Families in it. I had this experience as an appraiser. It was kind of, an asset class I understood more than I understood stocks or bonds or whatever. But as well, real estate's really powerful in the ability to use leverage, right? I've heard you can buy stocks with leverage. I don't know how to do it, and I think you got to be pretty smart to figure it out. But you don't have to be too smart to figure out how to buy real estate with leverage, right? Essentially, that's what everyone is doing who buys a house as an owner-occupant. You are getting a loan, most likely, and that loan acts as leverage, right? So you're putting 3.5% down for this home, and then if say you buy a $300,000 house, 3.5% down. Help me out here, Charlie. Was about 12 grand? Something, you fact check me, but roughly 10, 12 grand, something. But it's not really the important part. If that appreciates 10% in the first year, and this last year we saw like 20% roughly appreciation rates, higher in some parts of the country. But yeah, if that appreciates 10%, you've gained $30,000 in equity, but you've only put in about 10 or 12. So that's like a 300% return. Right. That's crazy. Yeah. But it's 10% of the total value of the asset, but you didn't put in $300 to get that asset. So that's the beauty of leverage, right?
300,000.
Yeah.
You didn't put in 300. Yeah. And so you're leveraging someone elleveraging money, whether that's an individual or a bank,
or an individual, right? Or hard money lender, whatever it is.
Your grandma.
You're
you're leveraging someone else's
Uncle, mom,
money.
Dad, friend.
You're getting them a return, right? We can't dive into all of this right now, but in just what we've described in these 2 episodes that we've filmed together, how many jobs have we created? Right,
it's true. Yeah,
everyone from the people who work at the county, filing our papers, to the people who make the HVAC material, the ductwork, to the people who install the HVAC material, to the people who inspect the HVAC material, right, to the GC who's making an upcharge on all of those items, to the people who we bought the land, blah blah blah. The list goes on and on and on to our investors, and so you see, I can't go into all the details right here, and that's not the purpose of this episode. But I'm answering kind of my own question in why there are so many tax benefits and tax breaks involved in real estate. Because you are stimulating the economy perhaps more than any other industry. And so the government wants us to create jobs because guess what they get to do with jobs that we create?
Tax all of them.
They tax it, right? And so we're creating so much taxable income, which is why real estate in general is one of the best ways to legally avoid paying taxes, right? And not altogether, but
Yeah,
but
and primarily when you're holding real estate.
primarily, yeah, short-term capital gains is a killer, absolutely. So yeah, primarily when you're holding, yeah. But okay, so you were familiar with the asset class, the power of leverage. I just mentioned taxes. Anything else that you would add to the why real estate question?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's pretty easy to see too. Appreciation rates are skyrocketing. It's insane what they're doing.
Right.
I still think it's a good time, right? Inventory is historically low. If you look at like the span of the last 100 years or so, interest rates are very low. They're coming up, but they're still very low. We've been underbuilding since the Great Recession, so since about 08, 09. So we have a deficit of homes, and you don't have the subprime lending. So I don't think we're in a situation where the market's about to crash.
Right.
Some people are afraid of that. So you might say, yeah, it's going up so fast. Why would I get in now? I'm too late. I think it still makes sense to get in now. It's going to keep going for a while.
Yeah, you had a good Facebook post about this the other day because just talk to us a little bit more about that and what's opportunity cost mean?
Yeah. So you could be sitting on the sidelines right now thinking, man, I don't want to get in real estate. It's too risky. I don't want to lose money. But there's another side of that. There's another risk that we don't think. Like, right, we're in 2022 right now. What happens if in 2025 even or 2032 you look back and the market has continued like this? Maybe not as strong, but still upward. Maybe as strong too. That'd be crazy. Right. But and then you say, man, I just missed out on making crazy gains because I was too scared in 2022 to jump into the game. So that's a risk too, right? The risk of losing that opportunity. And I think that's the bigger risk right now, to be honest. And I could be wrong. I could be eating my words here in 6 months. But that's, as I'm looking at the data, that's what I'm seeing. And a lot of these, bigger pockets guys, David Green, David Myers, kind of seeing the same thing.
Well, and again, the people that a crash would affect are the people who need to offload right now. Right.
Yep.
Whereas if you're a buy and hold investor,
right, you just
then you ride the wave. Yep. Mm-hmm. And historically, obviously we don't know the future, but historically, real estate there's been many downturns and it always rebounds. That's right. It holds its value over time, perhaps better than any other asset. So I think interviewing you is really helpful because it shows that real estate isn't all kind of like peaches and ice cream and rainbows and unicorns, right? Like there are some really hard days. Would you caution anyone?
It's not stress free.
It's not stress free. Contractors take your money. You show up. You've showed up and people have been like drinking on the job. And people, random things that are outside of your control end up happening.
And I'll be honest, man. So if you've got like kind of a weak stomach and you just hate stress, maybe don't do this.
Don't do this.
Yeah. But for me personally, when I was working as a real estate appraiser, I spent years just at my desk, alone, writing reports, and it got boring. It was kind of felt like my soul was dying.
Yeah.
But that I don't experience that in this line of work at all. It's exciting, and so you have some low lows which suck, but there's some very high highs too. And I think it makes it interesting. It keeps it fun.
I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and it was really late, and one of my friends said, "I'm so bored, I'm going to pee my pants just to entertain myself."
Yeah, so that temptation's pretty low when you're flipping houses.
Right, exactly. There's always something. If you're a thrill seeker, there's always something going on, So, and then I guess, I don't know. You've done that rental in Salisbury that you just described for us, but so I guess it doesn't have to be tenant specific. But do you have any funny stories about tenants or like funny anecdotes about like one of your contractors or something that happened? Like, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you in real estate? Like, what's the clickbait title of this episode? And anything that comes to mind?
Oh man. I should have prepped for this. When we found dead cats in the attic.
Yeah, that's funny.
So we had one. There was a house we were flipping, and it had been vacant for a few years, and it backed up to the woods here in North Carolina. And if you're not from the area, right, the forest gets thick out here, and several acres of woods. And the home inspector says, after he gets out of the attic, "Hey man, there's like some really big poop up there." And I was like, what do you mean big poop? Like a raccoon? He's like, no, dude, bigger. Like what? Like a mountain lion? Like a bear? And he's like, dude, could be. So weird. And there's like this turtle shell that had been eaten by something. Then they kind of left it up there. Still to this day, I don't that mystery was never solved. So there could have been a bear or mountain lion.
That
in the attic.
the person who bought the house is going to be. You just really you indicted yourself on coming on this show. Some person gets mauled by whatever.
Yeah, well, there were holes up into the roof structure, so we patched those up as part of the renovation. So
didn't poke the bear.
Yeah.
And then one time you like had a. I mean, this is not funny, but it's good that it didn't happen. You had like a trailer almost like crush you, right? You were moving. That as your friend, that freaked me out. I was like, you'd be dead and no one would have ever found you, you know? Eventually we would have put two and two together. But what were you doing? You were moving a trailer?
Yeah, so it's actually same house, hoarder house, and they had left this big trailer to like a car trailer. You put the front wheels of a car on. I don't know the technical term. Yeah. But so I had to get it out of there as part of the sale. The buyer, it was kind of back in the woods. So I rented a truck, pulled it out, and the lot next door was vacant. Actually, maybe we could touch on that. It's a project we've got in the works here, the little development project.
We'll do a whole video on that.
Sure. So we, I go to store the trailer in here temporarily until we could sell it. And it's a big hill down off the street into this place. So I've got this trailer rusted up, nasty, 2 flat tires, and I'm pulling it backwards down this hill. It starts to get some momentum. So I'm like running backwards with this trailer because it was hard to pull. I was like, I'm gonna use this momentum right and get this thing down here. And I stumbled over the tree root or something, and then realized that this trailer was still flying towards me as I'm like falling on my back. So I had to do this real quick back somersault and get out of the way. And
would have impaled you.
Yeah, it would have been ugly. But thankfully, I didn't die.
Nice.
I did have to take a couple trips to the chiropractor after that because my back was pretty jacked up. So I should have just paid somebody to take that trailer out of there because I spent more in chiropractor fees.
Well, it makes for good YouTube content. You know, when
I wish I had it on video.
You're not rich enough to pay for someone to do everything. You end up doing really stupid stuff. We all have those stories. Guilty. Well, dude, I really appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, no, so I'm honored. Again, been a massive value add in my real estate investing career, and so it's only fitting that you would be my first guest. And you gave me the name. The more you know, you recommended the name. So, kudos. Thank you so much for being on this show. I obviously hope we get to partner on some deals in the future. But even if we don't, you have set me in a great trajectory of real estate investing, and just been really liberal with your information. And even,
you just call me liberal.
Yeah, I did.
No, man, I've
Snowflake.
been
even
it's an honor to get to know you, man.
My first video, someone said, "Dude, you just laid it all out there. Like you just there was no curtain, that you weren't letting us in behind. Like you told us everything." And I was kind of like, "Yeah, well, Tyler." Kind of, you don't keep any secrets. You're not trying to hoard. You know that
maybe I should keep a few more secrets.
No, the world's big enough. The market's big enough.
Sure.
And there's plenty of deals for everybody. But appreciate your value add, and definitely gonna have you on again in the future.
Let's do it, man.